schizophrenia, compared to what a lot of people think, isn't what Hollywood just portrays it as. There's actually 5 different types of disorders that are an array, kind of like the color line isn't just one straight color, there's a lot to it. Like, there's 5 different disorders, and a lot of people don't know that. There's schizoaffective, schizotypal, schizoid, schizophrenia, and what I have, schizoaffective. And my disorder, as it varies from schizophrenia, is that I don't have active hallucinations like a lot of people portray schizophrenia as. I have affective, just flattening of emotions for the most part. And that's not being cold, that's not depression, it's something that's a lot deeper rooted. And though that's one of the symptoms, that's one of the most pervasive that I experience. And it's a negative symptom, not saying that symptoms are positive, but positive symptoms a lot of people attribute with schizophrenia, that's hallucinations, and that's something that adds to a person's experience, while mine is a negative symptom because it takes away. And it simply subtracts from who I am instead of adding on to it. Media, as it portrays schizophrenia, is someone who's extremely aggressive, someone who can't control themselves, someone who's very stringed on society, someone who's not in control at all. And yes, that's the case for very few people. That's not the case for most individuals. As I said earlier, there's 5 different disorders, and all of those have a different combination of symptoms. Just kind of like you can make cookies and cake out of the same ingredients, and yet they're something completely different. And Hollywood portrays people with schizophrenia very negatively in regards to that. They don't even portray them as people, which really, one, is just a very poor singular narrative. It's like there's a lot more to people than just that. And I mean, I haven't had hallucinations since I was 7, but if you went off of what Hollywood told you, you would think that I couldn't contain myself, that I would need help 24/7, that I'm inches away from snapping and breaking and killing everyone, and that's not the case. And as you can see, I'm a functional individual, but there are some barriers that I have, and that's where the disorder comes into play. 1 in 4 college students will have symptoms of a mental health disorder, and in regards to that, I think SLU could be doing more, just in regards, at least information, that you're not alone and that people out there are suffering and having the same, not really the same, but similar circumstances and experiences, that someone who's suffering in their dorm room alone isn't really alone. And in terms of counseling center, granted that's not my expertise, I could rail on them for hours, but they do good in the end. They do offer students help, and they do fill a need in our, well, at least in our school. But things that university could be doing better, just not feeling that people are alienated when they come to help, because in the past students have been kicked off campus for having episodes, which is worrying for me, just because I do have a form of schizophrenia. Everyone breaks down at some point, but if I do that, then that's going to have long-term repercussions on my end, even if it's nothing severe. Policies on, well, not even that. That was an end of... It's good to think about. That's the thing, like, people think we are dangerous, but that's just because of a lack of education and a lack of actually paying attention and listening to people's stories who are affected in one way or another. Because those who know me know that I'm anything but dangerous. But if you just go off of what people tell you about me, not people who know me, but people who talk on behalf of those who do have mental health disorders, who will think that I'm dangerous. And that also is a huge problem, because then that sets a barrier and a limit to how much you're actually going to listen to me and actually seek who I am out, and that's a problem. So the episode that I mentioned when I was 7 is rather comical, but at the same time very unsettling. So I was sleeping and I woke up because I thought I heard my mom talking to me, and then there was a giant purple dinosaur just outside my room. And the movie that was in the 80s, I think, about a dinosaur and a boy, the dinosaur was a cartoon, and I just saw him outside my window, and that was the first time that I knew that something was wrong. And it wasn't a moment of hysteria, it wasn't a moment of me freaking out, but after that, started realizing that I am different because lack of emotions, that there's not caring, and then there's being cold, and then there's lack of feeling, and keying in on that, I was able to slowly understand that I am different, and that I am diagnosed with schizophrenia. And ever since then, I haven't had an episode, a hallucination, a delusion, anything like that, but still having the scars left over from that. And yeah, I don't think that anyone would generally be able to understand someone who does have schizophrenia, especially the type that I have, being that emotions and our everyday realities are so tied together. It's like removing money and power from politics. You have to have both, or else it's not an equal and fair playing field. Not fair playing field, but it's not politics then if there's not money and power involved. And since the vast majority of my emotions are gone, it's hard for some people to distance themselves from that and put themselves in a perspective that has that distance. It's like, imagine everyone had wings and then you're the only one who didn't have wings. You can talk about it, people can tell you what it's like to fly, but not being able to, that sets you at a whole different experience and just lifestyle than others. And it's hard for someone who does have that capability to understand what it's like not to have it. Some of the issues involved, like homelessness. I'm afraid if I tell anyone that I am schizophrenic, that then they'll just automatically assume that I'm going to be homeless, like the vast majority of the population that are homeless who do have schizophrenia, and either that or in jail. And that seems unsettling, just from my own perspective, that people automatically assume that. And health coverage, when someone is wanting to seek help in any regards, often are objectified and have to carry the label and the negative stereotypes with them around with that. Because like the moment someone comes out with having a mental health disorder, they're automatically put in a small box, especially with schizophrenia as well. So when someone does seek help or does come out, then they have to deal with that in that regards. But like the main struggle that I have is trying to identify my own emotions, because I mean, easiest way to explain it is like, just think of your emotional capacity as all the grains of sand on like the east and west coast of the United States, and my emotional capacity is just like a bucket of sand. So I still have emotions, they're just very few and far between and weak. So I'm trying to base friendship, happiness, love, the whole gamut of things that are included and tied into emotions. My biggest struggle in life is not really in life, but in regards to having schizoaffective disorder, is trying to understand what a healthy understanding of love is, definition, and how to apply that into life. Not having emotions, then is it just actions for me, but then that is terrible. And then what's a friend if you don't have that emotional connection with someone? Are they just a stranger? That for me is the hardest part of, not really life, but relationships, is trying to figure out not only what is a certain emotion, but also how to apply that. That I've personally matured in, just how I view myself and my mental health disorders, that I'm not inherently broken because I have it. Like, because the way that I grew up isn't inherently wrong, and the way that I go about life isn't bad. I used to inherently believe that, and that was very, very toxic, even if there is some due course for it. And coming to realize that I am whole within myself, even with a mental health disorder, as long-term as schizophrenia is, that I don't need emotions to be whole. And even though a lot of people say that that's what makes a person human, that I am like full within myself, even without it. So, and you are too. Get one thing across in this video is just to take time to listen to someone's stories and identity, because I mean, I'm not the only person who has trouble, and I'm not the only demographic and intersectionality that has pain and trouble and who has been not listened to. And a lot could happen if we just sit down and actually listen and engage our friends and people in our community, and not even just with mental health disorders, but race and queer and LGBTQ, people who identify as anything but you can often learn the most from. And if that's in terms of at least just being able to listen more or actually educating yourself, you'll be surprised at how good of a thing it can be.